John Michael Luper was born in 1946 in the city of Leeds, West Yorkshire, to parents Stanley Luper and his wife Olga, née Black. John's only sibling, younger brother Toby, who was 8 years younger than John, was born in 1954. In 1981, aged 35, John married Turkish-born Lekan Karabag in Leeds, and the couple's only child, daughter Liza Rose, was born in 1983. John came from a well-known Jewish family in Leeds and was part of the United Hebrew Congregation, an Orthodox Jewish community that worships at a synagogue in the city. His maternal grandfather, Isaac or Ike Black, was a master tailor in one of the finest workrooms in Leeds in the 1940s and 50s, when the city was still the hub of the UK textile and suit trade. He was followed into the trade by his son-in-law Stanley, John's father, and son Norman, John's uncle. Stanley and Norman founded Black & Luper, a textile factory employing hundreds of workers on Kirkstall Road, near the famous Headingley cricket and rugby grounds. For some time, it was the biggest single-story textile factory in the UK and manufactured garments for high-end brands such as Burton and Burberry. The firm also kitted out the Leeds United team that won the 1972 FA Cup. Both John and Toby followed their fathers into the family business. Its success and his other ventures, such as in property, made John a millionaire and enabled him to buy a large mansion, worth approximately £1.6 million today, in Alwoodley on Sandmoor Drive, one of the most exclusive streets in Leeds. Here he lived with his wife, daughter, and the family au pair. John was also a non-executive director of the Sports Entertainment Media Group and part of the consortium which bought out the business for £9.4 million. The group represented sportspeople and celebrities such as Thierry Henry, Rio Ferdinand, Lennox Lewis, and Jody Marsh. Toby, who was very close to his brother, said of John that he was loyal. He was a great family man. He would help anyone. He would go out of his way to help anyone, sometimes even at his own detriment. Family friends described John as a colorful, forceful character, a warm-hearted family man who was generous to charities and a larger-than-life character who always had a cheeky grin on his face with a passion for sports, particularly football and golf. On the 16th of February 2004, John set out from the family home at 11:30 p.m. to walk the family dog. He only got as far as the pavement in front of his neighbor's driveway on Sandmoor Drive before he was ambushed by a gang of 4 or 5 masked men who dragged him up the gravel drive through some bushes and back to the family home. After entering the house, John was bound with silver duct tape by the gang. John's wife, daughter, who was 20 at the time, and the family's Turkish au pair, who were in bed when the raid began, were also similarly bound and left in an upstairs room separated from John downstairs. The gang stole John's wallet, which contained his credit cards and a substantial amount of cash he had taken out of the bank in preparation for an upcoming business trip. Jewelry was also taken, including a number of watches, amongst which was a rare Cartier watch, one of only 4 sold in the UK at the time, made of platinum with vertical rows of diamonds on either side of the watch face. Estimates suggest that the jewelry and cash totaled approximately £100,000 in value. As John lay dying during the raid, an attempt was made by the robbers to feed him marmalade from a jar found in the family kitchen. The robbers, having completed their raid, then fled the home, and on hearing this, the ladies in the upstairs bedroom were able to free themselves from their bindings. On making their way downstairs, they found John unconscious on the floor of the morning room. Police were called at 1:45 a.m. and despite attempts by emergency services to resuscitate John, he was pronounced dead at the scene in the early hours of the 17th of February 2004. Pathologists initially struggled to determine the cause of death for John. It was theorized that due to the attempts to feed him marmalade, he may have suffered a diabetic attack which caused his death. However, it was eventually determined that he had died from asphyxia and that the marmalade had likely been given to him by the robbers, as they became concerned about his health during the raid. Police revealed that John had a very mild diabetic condition which did not require medication, and it appears that the robbers became aware of this, possibly through John telling them, and in an attempt to boost his sugar levels gave him the marmalade. The mode of asphyxiation John suffered has never been revealed, but police did state that there were only superficial injuries on John's body and no signs of violence. Detectives also revealed that the women had received light injuries, including 2 having suffered light blows, as the robbers moved them from room to room as they meticulously searched the property for items to steal. Despite the lack of major obvious violence involved in the offense, Detective Superintendent Bill Shackleton of West Yorkshire Police, who led the initial investigation in 2004, said of the raiders that they came there determined to commit this offense. They were equipped to do so, and they knew exactly what they were going to do when they got there, and they were prepared to use a degree of violence. DS Shackleton confirmed that police believed John and the Luper home had been targeted due to wealth, rather than any kind of business or personal grudge. All the robbers had worn masks and gloves, and they were believed to have had a getaway car parked a short distance from the Luper home. The women in the Luper family were able to provide descriptions of 2 of the robbers. The first was described as a tall, muscular black man with a Yorkshire accent, while the second was between 5 feet 3 inches and 5 feet 6 inches, of slight build, and believed to be mixed race or a light-skinned black man. One was described as a somewhat reluctant participant in events, having been overheard by the women as apologizing for what was happening and claiming he did not want to be there. However, the women could not be certain if there were 4 or 5 robbers in total, and this appears to never have been established for certain by police. Extensive forensic searches were conducted of the Luper home and on Sandmoor Drive, in particular the area where John was ambushed whilst walking the dog. Numerous public appeals for information were made, including a reconstruction of the crime on the nationally broadcast BBC Crime Watch programme. Efforts were made to trace the jewellery stolen. It has never been made public whether any of this has been recovered, but a number of appeals over the 20 years since the crime have focused on the Cartier Platinum watch, so it appears that this rare item in particular is still outstanding. Detectives came to believe from information received that the killers were from within the criminal fraternity of the Bradford and Spen districts. Spen is about 17 miles and 35 minutes by car from Sandmoor Drive, and central Bradford approximately 13 miles, but around the same travelling time by car due to traffic and road differences. 10 months after John's death, land and farm buildings at the Windybank estate near Liversedge, 2 miles from Spen, were searched. But if anything of significance was recovered, that information has never been made public and no charges have ever followed. Over the years since John's murder, the case continues to be reviewed. Since 2017, it has been overseen by the West Yorkshire Police Major Investigation Review Team, a team of specialist cold case investigators. The team undertook a full review of the case, specifically focusing on forensic evidence and any advances over time, which could bring new lines of inquiry from the existing forensic material. It appears that nothing of significance has been uncovered by the review team, and appeals continue to be made, including most recently by John's brother Toby and new lead officer Detective Chief Inspector Damien Roebuck on the 20th anniversary of the crime in February 2024. During the investigation, it was revealed that the Luper home had been broken into some months prior to the February raid. Police learned that John had reportedly told his friends that the robbers in the previous raid had repeatedly demanded diamonds from him. This led police to speculate that both raids were committed by the same gang, who had returned in the belief that diamonds were kept in the home and were determined to steal these. Whether the Luper family did actually own diamonds has never been revealed. It seems clear that police believe the identity of the gang members is known to members of the criminal fraternity in the Leeds and Bradford areas. It even seems possible that the police themselves are aware of who the robbers likely were, given the raids on the property in Liversedge carried out soon after the crime, but have been unable so far to secure enough evidence to prosecute. Police appeals continue to focus both on asking for information from people approached and asked to buy jewelry from unknown people or people known to not have provenance or receipts for the jewelry, and on the changing of loyalties and allegiances within the community or criminal fraternity over time. This focus suggests some awareness within the police of who likely suspects may be, and a need for more evidence to tie them to the crime. The police have stated publicly that John was targeted for his wealth rather than for a grudge. This may be true, but it seems possible to me that someone with some inside knowledge of the Lupers may have been involved in the crime. It is plausible that the family were picked as a target because of their home being on Sandmore Drive and their obvious resultant wealth. But if so, why pick that home over any other on the road? To me, the gang seems to have had some information about John and the family which may have come from a degree of insider knowledge. For example, 11:30 p.m. at night is a fairly unusual time to walk a dog. So, how did the raiders know this would be a good time to ambush John? They could have gained such knowledge from watching the family home for some time and learning their routines, if indeed such a late-night walk was routine for John. But the layout of the road and the security-conscious nature of people in a wealthy neighborhood would have made anyone spending any time watching a home fairly conspicuous. In addition, why did the raiders think that there were diamonds in the Luper home? Could this have been from some possibly incorrect inside information? And if the raiders were from the Bradford-Spen area, how did they come to target the Lupers at all? It is, after all, some distance to the Alwoodley area of Leeds from this area. So how did they become aware of the Luper family, and why would they not have focused on similarly wealthy targets closer to home? It is possible the information made its way to them through a criminal network, but it seems to me more likely that some insider information may have been in play. I stress this is purely a theory of mine based on deduction and has never been suggested to my knowledge by police. How do you think the Lupers may have come to be targeted for this crime? And what do you think the chances are of it ever being solved now, given that the information the police need seems most likely to come from within the criminal fraternity?